Welcome to another episode of C4NPR Chats. I'm Heather Bradley, the Director of the Center for Nonprofit Resources, and I'm delighted to welcome back Patrick Johnston. He's the Vice President of Community Investment with the Greater Toledo Community Foundation. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Sorry?
It's good to be back.
Yeah, because we're always excited. We know when you come back, we're going to be talking likely about grants, and everybody wants to learn about that. And in fact, Patrick is going to talk about a newly announced fund that I know all of you are going to want to learn about and see if your organization can benefit from this new fund. But first, Patrick, I want to thank the organization, GTCF, for the work that you all have been doing in this area around COVID-19 response. And would like to just start there. The COVID-19 Response Fund, is it still available from GTCF?
It is, yes. And important to say, too, before I talk about that we should be thanking not just the work that we've done here at the foundation, but countless donors that have contributed to that fund. And then more importantly, the number of nonprofit agencies that have responded to it and have used those dollars to have great impact. As of this recording, we've made about 50 grants out of that fund. So a lot of good work has been done. And for that reason, the answer to your question, Heather, is yes. The foundation will continue to accept and review applications through the Response Fund. That opportunity, as you know, was designed to quickly react to emergency basic needs in the community. And while we have seen some decline in the number of requests over recent weeks, there is still need and there are still good requests coming in. So our new resilience fund that we'll talk about later, that's not for basic needs support. So organizations with that type of request, the basic needs requests, should continue to utilize the response fund to seek support for those projects. And I will say it is possible that a single organization could apply to both funds if they have projects that meet each's focus area. So that is a possibility.
Great, so I'll make sure that the link is in the description below so that you can go back and easily find that, that fund, the response fund. But you can also, if you're interested, look at a list of the groups that have received or benefited from that fund. Yep. Okay, all right, so it's exciting. There's this new fund, the Community Resilience Fund just got announced this week. So help us understand what the funding priorities are for that fund.
Sure. So the Resilience Fund is focused on longer-term recovery efforts, again, for Northwest Ohio and Southeast Michigan. An application should be directly related to conditions caused by COVID or be responding to lessons that nonprofits learned in dealing with the circumstances caused by COVID-19. So it's similar to the Response Fund in that it is directly responding to COVID, but this is taking a longer term. So, not the immediate response, but what have folks learned and what do they want to do now? There are two categories here. The first is in service provision, and this is for programming that is directly assisting residents who are impacted by COVID-19. I'm going to give one example here, and that could be something like a job training program. Unfortunately, as we all know, a lot of folks had to close their businesses down temporarily. Some folks were furloughed, some folks were laid off. We're still learning what all the impacts of that is and will be, but it's likely that there's going to be some need there to support folks who are newly unemployed. So in this case, if somebody were to come in with a request, we would think about, so let me step back for a second. The foundation knows that there are already good training programs that exist, and those are funded primarily with government support. So therefore, if somebody were to come in, a priority proposal to this fund, to Greater Toledo Community Foundation in this area would be one that showed how the organization was filling an unmet gap in comparison to services currently available. As with the Response Fund, we are prioritizing organizations that have experience in the service being delivered and a track record of success, as well as those that are coordinating and partnering with others providing similar services. And I also want to be clear, Heather, we're not only considering job training here. I just wanted to give one example that people could sink their teeth into, but the foundation is really looking forward to receiving proposals from nonprofits working in multiple sectors across our community. So that's the first category, that service provision on a long-term scale. And then there's a second category, which we are calling organizational restructuring. And this one was created to support nonprofits that are considering changes at an organizational level in response to lessons learned during the COVID crisis. And this could take many forms, including changing how services are delivered. It could be technology changes, could be through new partnerships and alliances. And here we're looking for proposals that will help to make organizations more resilient if another crisis occurs. Foundation is prioritizing proposals that clearly illustrate how applicants fit into the larger nonprofit ecosystem in our region. We're really taking a broad view and are asking the applicants to take that well, and also to tell us how they're leveraging the work of similar agencies. We want to understand how all this fits together and how your new restructuring would take that into account. We're also considering how these investments advance some of the broader community planning efforts that have occurred in the past. So a lot of great work has been done. There's a lot of planning documents out there. A lot of committees have come together, and we have some really good vision that folks have put together. And we just want to see, how does changing your organization's operations or how you're set up, how does it advance those broader community priorities as well?
Yes, and in fact, at the Center for Nonprofit Resources, Patrick, we have been contacted from the early stages of the COVID virus, and people are exploring all of these different options. I will also add a link to the bottom here to our mergers and dissolutions and exit strategies page. I will also put in the contact information for our regional representative at the Ohio Attorney General's office, because depending on your circumstances in a nonprofit, there may be some additional requirements and filings that need to take place. So we'll make sure all of that's there.
That's a great idea.
So I've received this question. Many people out in the community know about the Strategic Alliance Partnership Grant. How is this different, this new fund, particularly that second piece of it that you described, how is that different from the Strategic Alliance Partnership Grant?
That's a really good question. So, and I'm glad you brought up that there are the two categories. I think the first category with service provision, it's pretty clear how that's different from the Strategic Alliance Partnership. But in that second category of organizational restructuring, there are clear similarities between SAP, Strategic Alliance Partnership Fund, and the new Resilience Fund. In fact, in the grant guidelines, Heather, the foundation encourages applicants to look into the SAP fund to see if the project is a good fit there as well. Organizations could potentially receive funding from both opportunities. I could see that happening, that there would be some cases that would cross over to such a degree that it would be not only eligible, but potentially funded through both. Some differences do exist, though. For example, applicants to the Resilience Fund are not required to work with other agencies. It is a priority of the fund. It will make the applications, a deeper look at those because it makes sense. But there are opportunities as well where you wouldn't necessarily have to partner or merge with another organization that could fit the guidelines and be a good application for the Resilience Fund. Another is that the Resilience Fund applicants must connect their project in some way to lessons learned during the COVID-19 experience. And that's really getting at that resiliency part of this. So that is different than SAP. And it doesn't preclude folks who are applying for SAP to do that, but they're not required to connect it directly to a COVID-19 experience. And then lastly, that is a difference is SAP is often used for planning purposes, not exclusively, but we see a good number of requests there that are for planning and setting things in motion. Whereas the Resilience Fund, could be used for some planning, but we really think we're going to see a lot more applications of folks that are ready to implement changes, right now and implement those changes quickly. So that's a slight difference between the two. I would also note that in addition to SAP, there are potentially other funding opportunities at the foundation and through other funders that could be tapped at the same time. An example at GTCF is the community funds opportunity, and that has an August 15th deadline. There's 2 deadlines throughout the year. August 15th is the next one. And most folks know this, but if you don't, the community funds support programmatic requests for new and innovative concepts and projects, provides grant dollars for pilot projects, and prioritizes those that include collaboration among nonprofit partners. So I could see cases, just like where I said earlier, that folks might apply to both the Response Fund and the Resilience Fund. There may be some projects, especially in the organizational restructuring category of Resilience Fund, that some of the implementation work might be new and innovative and working off of best practices from other places around the country. It could be a good fit for a community funds proposal as well. So just because folks are looking at the Resilience Fund, they don't have to assume that that means that's all they can apply for. We want folks to take that broader look. And especially, we encourage you to seek out all possible appropriate funding opportunities. Of course, you and I are the most familiar with the ones here at Greater Toledo Community Foundation and the Center for Nonprofit Resources, but there are other opportunities out there. And that is something that any funder looks at when they're reviewing an application, is just how much work have the organizations done seeking out those other funding sources. So, take that one step further. We encourage organizations to note what other sources are being sought or have been secured in their applications when they come in for our funding opportunities. Any of those funding opportunities, it behooves the applicant to be really clear and make it very clear to the foundation and the reviewers that they understand what's out there. They've secured some things and they're in a position to secure others, and that they can leverage our dollars then with the others that they're looking for.
Right, and as you were speaking, and I'm talking about cycles on the grants, I suppose another big difference between the Community Resilience Fund and the SAP, as we call it, the Strategic Alliance Partnership Grant, is that SAP is a 2-cycle, and the next submission, the next start of that process is September 15th. So this is a great way to get a jump on some of these things by tapping into or considering the Community Resilience Fund.
Yeah, and to build off of that, I should note, and this is in the guidelines, so take a good long look at the guidelines, but we set up the Resilience Fund so that it has 3 different deadlines, and the earliest of those is July 15th. So you'll see that pop up as the deadline, but there's 2 more deadlines before the end of the year. And when you're asking organizations to think about these deeper questions and how they might, restructure their service delivery or partner or ally with other organizations, it takes some time. So I wanted to make sure people understood, just like SAP has a deadline coming up, this Resilience Fund has multiple deadlines. And I get this question all the time as a program officer: is it better to apply in the first one or the second one or the third one? In this case, it does not matter. The funding will be there for all 3 rounds. So if organizations need the time to think through and to create those partnerships, don't rush for the July 15th deadline. If you're ready then by all means submit at that time, but make sure that you have all the ducks in a row.
Great. So finally, how does a nonprofit apply for this new fund opportunity, Patrick?
Yeah, so anybody that's applied for grants with us before should be pretty familiar with this process, and we're doing it the same with this one. Any proposal has to be submitted through our online application system. That's the only way that we'll take the proposals. And you can find that if you go to the foundation's website, toledocf.org, and then go to the grants page, you'll see all of our open funding opportunities listed there. The Resilience Fund is there. The guidelines you can link to right from the grants page. And then there's also a link right there on the grants page that'll take you directly to the logon for our online system. If you haven't created an account yet, you'll have to do that. It's a very easy, simple process. You just need to have an email address, and then you create your own password. And then I would also, as always, encourage people to reach out to the program department. We're here to answer questions. We're here to talk through, what you might be thinking about. We can't review proposals before they're submitted, but we can certainly have conversations and answer any technical questions or even questions about the proposal. Program department, for those that don't know, is myself, Artisha Lawson, and Chris Judd are the three here. All of us can answer questions about the Resilience Fund and then any other opportunities we have at the foundation.
Great. Well, Patrick, I know that I've heard great feedback about I don't know how new it is now, but the new grant system that got implemented. One thing that I'm hearing that is really great is you can log in once and then see all these different opportunities. So
right.
Maybe there's something out there that you weren't even aware is available. So I encourage people to troll around a little bit when they get in there. And then as Patrick mentioned, there's always a set of guidelines, and consistently there is the name of the person responsible, the grant officer for that grant. So you know exactly who to reach out to and to connect with to get any questions answered or clarification that you might need. Well, Patrick, I want to thank you for taking time to meet with us and share this with our clients, the nonprofits out in our community. This is really, really exciting times that we can now offer a new way to support the groups in what we know is a really challenging time.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it.
Great. So we look forward to seeing you on another episode of C4NPR Chats. I mentioned a number of links throughout this chat with Patrick. I'll make sure they're all available. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out to us. And if you haven't, if maybe this is the first time you've seen one of these, if you haven't been to our website, it's C4NPR.org, and you'll find lots and lots of different resources out there. Let us know how we can help you. Catch you next time.